Today I messed up by watching an emotional movie and putting my girlfriend into a death grip while we slept. Last night, my girlfriend and I decided to have a movie night. We wanted something light and fun to take our minds off the world, so I agreed to watch a Disney movie, even though I usually prefer darker, more intense thrillers. My girlfriend offered me a choice between The Little Mermaid and Mulan, and since I hadn't seen The Little Mermaid in ages, I went with that. Now, I should mention that I'm not great with emotions. I tend to compartmentalize everything and avoid anything that might make me feel too deeply. For instance, I steer clear of movies with sad animal stories because I know they'll just leave me in tears. So, when we started watching the movie, I was just trying to enjoy the nostalgia. My girlfriend kept swatting my phone out of my hands, insisting I pay attention, and I eventually got swept up in the story. By the end, I was a complete mess. I hadn't cried in years, let alone over a children's movie. It was bizarre and unexpected, but there I was, tears streaming down my face. I didn't even know why I was crying. It was just one of those moments. After the movie, we went to bed. We usually cuddle for a bit before turning to our sides to sleep. I have this odd sleeping position where I curl up like a little mummy, crossing my arms over my chest. Apparently, while I was in my deep slumber, I kept cuddling my girlfriend even after she turned over. I ended up locking her in a spooning position with my arms wrapped around her like a seatbelt. She didn't mind at first, but when she needed to get up to use the bathroom, she found herself trapped. According to her, she spent several minutes trying to escape without waking me, eventually having to pry my fingers apart one by one. When she finally managed to get free, I semi-woke up and started blubbering about her leaving me like Ariel in the movie. When she returned, I almost put her back in the death grip, so she decided to sleep on the couch instead. I had no idea any of this happened. I woke up feeling perfectly refreshed. My girlfriend, however, was not thrilled about her couch night, so now I've been jokingly banished to the couch myself for the night. I guess I learned my lesson. Emotional movies and I don't mix well. Who knew a Disney film could lead to such chaos?
I, 36 female, removed a friend, 37 female, from Facebook without saying anything because she can be very mean and aggressive, and a confrontation seemed. I want to share a story about a friendship that spiraled into chaos and ultimately led me to make a tough decision. It all started about a month ago when I realized that every time I saw a post from my friend, it left me feeling upset. I had to confront the reality that we didn't even live in the same state anymore. And I didn't want her to have control over my emotions any longer. To give you some context, we worked together about 10 years ago for 2 years. From the very beginning, she was negative and controlling, constantly telling me how to make decisions in my life. For instance, she insisted I shouldn't get a dog because I wouldn't care for it. Well, surprise, my dog is now 7 years old and thriving. Despite her controlling nature, she seemed to idolize me, declaring I was her best friend almost immediately. After just 2 weeks of knowing each other, she became upset when I didn't invite her to a girls' night with friends I had known since high school. She would often remind me that she didn't have many friends and would guilt-trip me into inviting her to everything I did. At first, I thought she was just struggling and needed a friend, so I tried to be understanding. Things took a turn when she started dating a guy from work about 3 months after we met. I thought this might help her self-esteem, but it only seemed to amplify her neediness. Fast forward a year and a half, and she insisted that I be one of her bridesmaids. I agreed, thinking it would strengthen our friendship. Then, she and her husband bought a house just a mile and a half from mine, loudly proclaiming that they chose that location because we were so close. It felt like a lot of pressure, but I tried to be supportive. However, when my fiancé cheated on me and I had to move away, she was furious. She screamed at me, claiming I had abandoned her and that she never would have bought her house there if she had known I was leaving. A year later, I had moved on and met an amazing Brazilian man. We dated and eventually I decided to marry him. Despite my better judgment, I let her guilt-trip me into letting her be a bridesmaid again. The day of the wedding was a disaster. She missed her flight and someone had to leave the rehearsal dinner to pick her up. At the reception, she drank too much and ended up in a compromising situation with a married groomsman. It was a nightmare, and the whole event was overshadowed by her antics. After the wedding, she left her husband and began trying to immigrate to Brazil to be with the man she had cheated with. She constantly complained about her life, blaming everyone else for her problems. It was exhausting, so when I finally decided to remove her from Facebook without saying anything, it felt like a weight had been lifted. But then things took a turn for the worse. She started sending me several messages, which I didn't reply to, and then she began bothering my family. She reached out to my sister and brother, and even my stepmother, claiming she was worried about me. At this point, I was left wondering if I should even respond to her. I felt like if I didn't have anything nice to say, it was best to keep quiet. But I also knew that she seemed completely oblivious to why I had removed her from my life. Reflecting on this situation, I realized that I had let her control my life for far too long. I had been a doormat, allowing her to dictate the terms of our friendship. It was a hard lesson learned, but I knew it was time to set boundaries and prioritize my own well-being. As I move forward, I'm focusing on surrounding myself with people who uplift me rather than drain my energy. Sometimes, it's necessary to let go of toxic relationships, no matter how difficult that decision may be. I recently found myself in a rather complicated situation with a friend, and I thought it might be worth sharing. So here's how it all unfolded. I had a friend who, let's just say, was not the easiest person to deal with. She had a tendency to be quite mean and aggressive, and I felt like a confrontation was always lurking just around the corner. After some careful consideration, I decided to remove her from Facebook without saying a word. I figured that would be the end of it. But oh boy, was I mistaken. After I deleted her, she started bombarding me with messages. When I didn't respond, she took it a step further and began contacting my family. Yes, you heard that right. She went straight to my sister. In her message, she claimed that I was a lot of trouble and suggested that I had forgotten what was important in life after my last relationship ended. She even had the audacity to say I was jealous of her Brazilian boyfriend because he was hotter than my husband. Seriously? 3 weeks after my initial post on Reddit, she sent me a direct message that was quite the doozy. She insisted that she had supported me through thick and thin, and that I owed her an explanation for my actions. At that point, I knew I had to respond. I took a deep breath, gathered my thoughts, and crafted a message that was both honest and respectful. I told her, I've realized our relationship was not healthy from the beginning. I think it's time we go our separate ways. I wish you the best. Her reaction? Well, let's just say it wasn't what I expected. She responded with a barrage of messages, listing all the times she had helped me. This included her putting me in her wedding. Funny enough, it was to the guy she cheated on with at my own wedding. She also reminded me of the time she invited herself on a road trip that she didn't even want to go on, complaining the entire time. After sending multiple long messages, she finally stopped. But that wasn't the end of it. She started posting passive-aggressive messages on Facebook about real friends and whatnot. Then, things took a turn for the bizarre. That very evening, she showed up at my dad's house, completely intoxicated, yelling for the truth. My stepmom, understandably concerned, called the police after about 15 minutes of her refusing to leave. The officers arrived, and instead of calming down, she began yelling at them too. In the end, she was arrested. Yes, you heard that right, arrested. The officers even mentioned the possibility of a restraining order. Since that night, I haven't heard from her at all. Honestly, I'm relieved. I'm glad I don't live near her anymore. Reflecting on the whole situation, I can't help but think that maybe this was the wake-up call she needed to realize her behavior wasn't healthy. It's a strange world we live in, where friendships can turn so sour. But I'm grateful for the support I received from friends and even strangers online. It helped me find the courage to stand up for myself. So, if you ever find yourself in a similar situation, remember, sometimes it's okay to let go of toxic relationships. You deserve to surround yourself with people who uplift you, not bring you down, and that's my story. Thanks for listening. My 22F neighbor, 70s told me about a woman, 20s visiting my boyfriend, 22M, when I'm gone. I've been in a relationship with my boyfriend for 3 years, and he moved in with me last year. I was already living in my apartment for a while, and had developed a lovely friendship with my neighbor, a sweet retired lady who knows everyone in the neighborhood. One day, she approached me with a serious look and said she had something to tell me. But I shouldn't get mad at her. I assured her I would never be angry with her, so she went ahead and dropped a bombshell. She mentioned that when I was away, whether it was for a late shift or visiting friends, she had seen a woman coming into my house and leaving before I returned. My heart sank as she described how this woman would hug and kiss my boyfriend, and she believed she stayed for at least an hour or two. Alarm bells were ringing in my head. I mean, there were no obvious signs of cheating, and we had always agreed that if things weren't working out, we would end it rather than cheat. Still, my boyfriend had been working overtime lately, and I had a friend at his company who confirmed he was bringing home bigger paychecks. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I was freaking out. After some advice from friends online, I decided to confront my boyfriend the next morning. I wanted to get to the bottom of this. I asked him directly who the woman was that had been visiting while I was gone. He looked completely confused and then started chuckling. I was baffled and insisted that I was serious. It turned out he was preparing to propose to me. One of my best friends had come over to help him pick out rings and plan the proposal. I felt a wave of guilt wash over me for jumping to conclusions, but even he admitted that it didn't look great from the outside. He showed me the texts and plans they had made, and while I felt bad for ruining the surprise, I was relieved to know the truth. Looking back, it all made sense. My friend had been asking me about engagement rings and what I would like. I couldn't believe I had missed all the signs. My neighbor had only seen this woman come over twice, so I guess her memory isn't as sharp as it used to be. In the end, my boyfriend didn't hold my assumptions against me and said he probably would have reacted the same way if the roles were reversed. I was so happy that we were on good terms again, especially after the stress of thinking he might be cheating. I even took a day off work to celebrate the relief and excitement. And yes, I told him that when he proposes, I'm definitely saying yes.